Welcome to the Black Panther Podcast. My name is Sergio Mims. I am the program director and co-program of the Black Harvest Film Festival. Also, I'm on WHPK Radio, FM, and the co-founder of Shadow and Act. Well, used to be. But welcome to this podcast. Due to my knowledge, this is the first and only podcast that is exclusively dedicated to Black Panther, the legend of the comic book, and of course the upcoming movie, which is opening in mid-February. First of all, I want to say that this event is an effort by the BrightSeed Collaborative, whose mission is to create a more diverse and progressive future through art, technology, and culture. And I said this is the first of a series of 4 shows that will be discussing the phenomenon, which it really is, we'll get into that, of the Marvel Comics Black Panther movie. First of all, I'd like to thank First Aid Comics for allowing us to host our show here in the upper room of the comic book store, and also thanks to Street Level, who will be filming our show today. Let's start with the introductions. We have 3 highly successful panelists, I know because it says right here, with knowledge, insight, and opinions who can help better understand the world of Black Panther. We have Keisha Howard from Sugar Gamers, Chris Adams, he's the CEO of Impact Studios, and Jiba Anderson of Griot Enterprises. Welcome, and introduce yourselves.
Ladies first.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, as you said, I am Keisha Howard. I'm founder of Sugar Gamers, which is a tech advocacy group focused on underserved demographics, specifically in video games and geek culture.
Oh, it's over to me. Hi, I'm Jiba Molay Anderson. I am CEO and creative director of Griot Enterprises, the creator of The Horseman, its flagship title, and also curator of the 4 Pages, 16 Bars, a visual mixtape anthology series, which focuses on independent books by creators of color.
And Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Adams, CEO of Impact Studio, a visual communication company. We've done a bunch of music videos, got 3 Grammy-nominated videos, artists like Lupe Fiasco, Public Enemy, Twista, and I'm also creator of Paradigm Gray, a Black SciFi anthology film project that we're currently shopping.
And you were just recently profiled in Chicago Tribune.
Yes.
So let's start off. This is, okay. Black Panther. I cannot think of a movie, I really can't think of one, in which there was so much anticipation for this film. It already broke the pre-sales record for any Marvel movie, which is funny considering about 5 years ago, Louis Esposito, who, I don't know, he's still with Marvel Studios, but when he was at Marvel Studios, he said in a panel there was no market for a Black Panther movie. And I know that because a friend of mine was on the panel with him. What happened? What changed?
What changed is reality. Mm-hmm. That's what changed. The biggest issue that the quote-unquote mainstream still has is that they still underestimate the power of the African-American audience.
They always do.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, we are a culture, we are a group that has $1 trillion of spending power. And we are aching to spend that money on products and projects that represent us in the light that we want to be represented.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was wrong. Number one. Number 2, I also remember back in the early 90s when Wesley Snipes was interested in making the Black Panther movie. That was the movie that Wesley Snipes wanted to make. At that time, it couldn't be made. So what he did instead was take a, at the time, D-list character that was rife for reinterpretation and turned around and created the movie Blade, which has become the template for the modern comic book movie. Never mind the modern black superhero movie, but the modern comic book movie, period. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to hear somebody say that 5 years ago when, in fact, the whole reason that Marvel eventually got bought out by Disney was based on a black movie.
So, well, let's start off from the beginning. For those people who still don't know who really Black Panther is, I'm sure they heard of the movie. They're not sure of exactly what the character is. Can you briefly talk about who is Black Panther, what are his origins, and all that?
Okay, I guess it's looking at me. Okay,
Because I should say he's been around since '66, I believe. Around for a long time.
Yeah, so the Black Panther was introduced in Fantastic Four 52 in 1966. Black Panther, in reality, is T'Challa, who is the current ruler of Wakanda. Wakanda is an African nation that had successfully survived or fought back colonialism. It is also the most technologically advanced nation in the Marvel Universe. And not only is he the king of that nation, he is also the chieftain of the Black Panther clan. His role is some parts hereditary, but also in other parts it's earned. Because in Wakanda is a nation of warriors. And it's a nation of people who nothing is handed to you. Not even your birthright of royalty. It has to be earned. And so T'Challa, when his father died during an attack by Ulysses Claw in order to get the vibranium, which is the main source of Wakanda's economic and technological power, a fictional metal that absorbs energy and can also redirect it. So he had to earn his right. He had to battle the 10 greatest warriors of Wakanda in order to then make a pilgrimage to obtain the heart-shaped herb, which he ingested and therefore allowed him to gain his powers, which is enhanced strength, enhanced senses and agility, and also the ability to communicate with the former Black Panthers that went before him. So the character, ironically created by two Jewish men, Stanley and Jack Kirby, the character is steeped in a sense of African spiritualism that we never saw until 1966. And what we're actually seeing people really, really get into in the independent Black comics movement from the 90s till today.
Well, Keisha, it's a question I want to ask you. That's why I thought one of the big reasons why people are so excited about the movies because they had never seen this vision of Africa before. Anytime you see Africa in a film, it's always war and poverty and famine and child soldiers. And here's this technologically advanced country, more technologically advanced than any other country in the world. And people are excited about that. And also, you may be surprised, I want to give credit to Donald Trump for what he said. Because he just added another $30 million to the box office.
Okay, what did he say this week or today?
Well, what he said about African countries, what he said about Haiti.
Oh yeah.
And I said, you just added another $30 million to the box office. You realize that. So do you agree with me that you think that's one of the main reasons why people are so excited about the picture?
Oh my God! The one of the main reasons. There's so many reasons.
Oh, name some others.
To be excited. Oh, name some others. We'll be sitting here all day. I mean,
well, that's the point.
With representation matters, and I don't really think people really understand what that actually means. When you're a kid, and your parents say you can be anything. Like, you kind of believe that, and you're just like, all right, you're old, you're supposed to tell me that. But until recently, you couldn't be the president of the United States. That was just like something like, you can be anything, but there was never any representation to say that you could be president until very recently. And I think that is one of the things that really has opened people's minds to be able to think bigger about themselves and how they're represented one of the other things is like T'Challa, Black Panther, is one of the most smartest individuals in the Marvel universe. So he's not just strong, he's not just given his ancestral powers, he's not just having, the technological advancements from vibranium, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. He also is actually very well educated, incredibly brilliant, right on par with Iron Man. So, there's that. We're able to now think of and visualize Black people without, again, being touched by slavery and colonialism. And that's something that we've all been trying to teach our kids and, awaken up to, like this idea of how to visualize ourselves without this narrative of slave mentality. And it's been exceptionally difficult. And Black Panther provides a universe in which you can visualize yourself as anything. Because you can now have this entire history that is untouched by slavery and that is rich and wealthy and so on and so forth. There's just a lot here. And then on top of which you see all of these attractive people, these attractive brown, beautiful people that are strong and just amazing to look at just from a visual component. If you know nothing about Black Panther, and now with the technology that we have, we can just really bring those visual components to life with the vibrant colors and the vibrant visualization of what Wakanda can be and looks like. I mean, it's just, like I said, I could just sit here forever and we don't even have to know the history, just a couple of facts about, what Black Panther is and can continue to be. I think that a lot of things for especially young people start with imagination. And we live in reality and whatnot, but we need to exercise our brains to imagine possibilities. And this right here, after we talk about this, after we see this movie, I think that it is going to inspire a whole generation of individuals to think of themselves in ways that they never really have done before. So I'm going to stop.
Okay, but Chris, this is something I have talked to friends about who are excited about this movie. Is there a fear of maybe expecting too much? Because people are building this movie up so much that I'm afraid there will be people who will go see it and say, oh, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Well, I think even with such high expectations, I mean, of course, you're not going to be able to meet all of those expectations, but the fact that there's no precedence for what we're about to see. One of the things about Black Panther, the lore and the characters, is he defies the stereotypical, which unfortunately they did in Black Lightning, where you got the black guy that's, he's got all these superpowers and this and that, but he isn't smart enough to make his own power suit or nothing. He's got this white guy off in the cut making all his technology, to help him do this. That was also done in Sam Raimi's Mantis. I don't know if you all remember that. It was a black superhero.
Yeah, I remember that show, yeah.
Now, the original pilot, he was this African, almost a prince or a king or something, and he developed his own technology, but when they made it a series...
It was terrible.
Yeah.
They changed it.
Yeah.
It was terrible, right.
What I call the white enabler.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
because in the pilot he had the black assistants. Yeah. They were from Africa. Exactly. They put everything together. Even when he opened up the mantis lair and whatnot, it was the African mask that slid through, and that was cool. And then the series
just abandoned all of that. We can't have blacks empowered. No, how dare you? But I don't. Just judging by Marvel's track record, they've taken some of the most obscure, unpopular characters and have made successful films. I have complete faith in them.
Oh, well, you see, now that brings up another question. I have a friend of mine who I was talking to about Black Panther, and she said she's excited to see the movie, but keep in mind, it's still going to be a Marvel movie. It's not going to be, they're going to break the mold, but they're not going to break the mold that far. It's still going to be a Marvel movie. For example, I was talking to her and I said, I don't know the storyline of the movie, haven't read the script or anything, but I said, wouldn't it be great if Black Panther finds out there is this conspiracy to kill all the black people in the world, and he's going to fight them and save All of us. It's not going to be that kind of movie, sir.
Oh,
No, it
Yeah,
can't-
but that's what I
no,
want.
No, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, and this is especially one of the things that I see a lot in Black fandom. Okay, I think Black fandom they deal with first of all, it's a sense of passive creativity. I think fandom is very much passive creativity.
Meaning what? Define
Meaning
that.
in the sense that with fandom wouldn't exist if the product didn't exist before. And the product that exists was created by somebody else. You see what I mean? So when it comes out and when it's put forth to people, you know what I mean? That's when their imaginations get stimulated. That's when also they begin to feel like there's some sort of ownership. They feel that they have some sort of ownership to the story, which they don't, but it's not, and I'm speaking as a creator. And it's nice to have people resonate with what you create, right? But at the same time, as a fan, you still are beholden to the creator. So, and on top of that, as it was said before, as you stated before, not everybody's going to be satisfied, and that's fine. That's why we have different media. You know what I mean? I remember like the conversations we were having earlier before, and speaking to your friend, if there was a conspiracy to kill all the black people and Black Panther comes to save it, well, they did that in 3 the Hard Way.
I'm gonna bring that up for a second.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. That was done, right? I mean, it's like the same thing when Luke Cage came out, which I loved, but people were like, oh, he was stiff, he wasn't black enough, blah 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 blah, whatever. You know what I mean? That was the blackest show that came out until Black Lightning, you know what I mean, on CW, which, again, I love because it kept with the lore and the history of Black Lightning and brought in the generational aspect. Now, with Black Panther is Afrofuturism at its peak. And with Black Panther, this will be the first time that a lot of African Americans are going to experience this notion of Afrofuturism, this notion of this black future where we are empowered, where we are free from the gaze, as I like to call it, free from the gaze of the other. The fact of the matter is, unfortunately, most African Americans don't have that. You know what I mean? They don't have that viewpoint of being free from the gaze. On top of that, they're also still dealing with the fact that 99.95% of our representation up until, I would say, the last 3-4 years, you can also say it was in the 90s, but especially when it comes to like these elements, that just happened with our black voices, that have black voices behind the telling of our mythologies and our stories. Before then, we always had the other tell our story.
Yep.
So this is going to be the first time, even though Black Panther is a Marvel property, you know what I mean, and it fits into the Marvel universe, but this is the first time that we are going to have a black director, Ryan Coogler, right, who directed a movie which had over $100 million budget, with the cast being over 90% African and African American. It's going to be diasporatic, right? We are going to see the diaspora of African culture, people, thought in this film. And granted, it's going to be through the lens of Marvel Comics, but the fact of the matter is that you should just sit back and enjoy this and let this wash over you. And on top of that, it's like, don't just be satisfied with what Marvel or DC are giving you, because there is a complete community, a complete underground culture, a complete underground industry, which is called the Black Comics movement. So you have so many other brothers and sisters in the mix, creating these worlds, creating these futures, so on and so forth, that I'm hoping, again, as a creator, also as a fan, that, Black Panther is the stimulus for black folks to go out and find more of these other works.
Well, okay. First of all, small point correction. Brian Coogler wasn't the first. Anton Fuqua
Okay.
has directed some $100 million pictures.
Okay. Okay.
Number two, and I would put this to Keisha, is that do you really believe there's going to be a change after Black Panther? Because, like I said, I talked to friends of mine. I'm on another podcast, Afro Nerd podcast, where, I mean, all they do now is talk about Black Panther, and he's saying this is the revolution. Everything will change after this in terms of black representation in the media. And I thought, well, hold your horses. I've heard that before. When a particular movie or TV show comes out and it didn't happen. So you really think it's really going to happen this time with Black Panther?
Absolutely. It's definitely, I have nothing but optimism. Probably number one is because, for the longest time, when we have discussions about movies, it's a black movie. I don't think Black Panther is a black movie. I don't think it fits that category as to how people look at this particular, IP. It's like everyone's excited about Black Panther. And like, yes, as a black person, I'm around many black people that's like Black Panther. But there's also just people of all different demographics and races that are also equally as excited about Black Panther. They may not be able to share our particular experience as to why we're excited, but just overall, the movie is actually, appealing to more than us. It is not a black movie. It's just a movie. And I think that we don't have a lot of movies, and like you were just saying, that has over 90% of a black cast, black directors, so on and so forth, that will have the kind of viewership that Black Panther has had. Because again, when you see mostly black people in a black movie, it maybe the minds of a white person or Asian person, they're like, that movie isn't for me. That's a black movie. I'm not going to see that. I'm going to go see, something else. I think the last movie that really, in my opinion, kind of wasn't a black movie, but starred a black actor was Blade. It's not a black movie. It's just a movie. And I think that the more titles that we have that moves outside of, having this, black in front of, I know the movie's called Black Panther, but do you understand what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
It's the more we can just have movies that tell our stories because they're compelling stories. Like, I think that the movie as a whole, it's probably going to suffer from some Marvelisms, but it's still going to just be a movie. And that's just really exciting when you can talk to your white friends who've also seen the movie about Black Panther because they were also just as excited to see it. Again, it might be a different kind of conversation. They're not going to say like, I'm from Wakanda. Like, they're not going to, they're not going to go that far, but it's still going to be, a movie that so many people are going to see. And that I think it will change the way, we're represented, and people want to talk about themselves and people want to represent themselves. It's iconic in that way.
Well, okay, but Chris...
I'm sorry.
No, but Chris, wait. It almost like you're saying that it's just different because this is a black movie where they spend a lot of money on it. That's what it kind of sounds like. Tell me if I'm wrong. It's like, okay, we got black movies, but here's a really expensive black movie. That makes it different. What do you think?
No, I don't even think it's about the budget aspect of it. I think the Marvelisms that we talk about is definitely going to help it cross over, because it's part of a bigger cinematic universe which Marvel has been building. But I think that also it's going to open up doors, and I'm already seeing this. We're in negotiations with distributors and various interested parties for my movie, and some of these people are at the table specifically because Black Panther's coming out and they're seeing the buzz about it. They're just like this frenzy right now. Like, okay, what's going to be the next thing to tap into this market that they have ignored forever? So they're excited. They're like, okay, you did what? A Black SciFi? What? Oh, what? It's all black? And the other thing is going to open the door. Like, it might not have every black element that we want in it, but it opens the door for so many. So my thing is, okay, this is going to open the door for projects like mine, where it's not only like 99% black in front of the camera, but we're also 99.95% black behind the camera as well.
Right.
So I want us to get to the point where like, okay, that made money. Now we can find investors and just interested parties that are willing to put in the work to create something so we can have our own stories that we own. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to see this movie a bunch of times, but we're putting a bunch of money into Bob Iger, who is a Trump supporter.
Yes.
His pocket. You know, so it's like, okay, let's do something and put it in our own pockets.
For real.
Okay, but Keisha, when you were talking about the excitement of the movie and you describing everything, it's this all black film, and I have to talk about an older picture, but it kind of fits all the things you were talking about, and I just happened to watch it a few days ago, and it's not a superhero, it's a romantic comedy, and I said, well, there was Coming to America, which came out 30 years ago, this year, set in an African country, kind of looks like Wakanda, kind of, about this prince who comes to America and falls in love with a black woman who has a successful father, and, you deal with his life, living out in the suburbs, and I go like, that was an all-black movie. Even the one white guy in it is played by Eddie Murphy. And I said, well, there was a lot of fuss about that movie back then. Yeah. Right. A lot of fuss.
Right.
I'll get to some of the other movies later, but a lot of fuss back then, but it didn't really lead to anything else.
Right. Well, I think.
Why is it different now?
I believe it's different now. Again,
it's a generational thing.
Well, there's several things that have happened in the last, 15 years that have just changed the minds of how we're going to move forward. Like I said, again, President Obama being elected is a huge thing, and not from a political reason, just from a representation reason. Eddie Murphy was an actor that was, the best way I can say it, just not intimidating to white people, white audiences. His movies, whether he was co-starring with a white person or a non-black person or not, everyone loved Eddie Murphy at that particular time, and he was very singular at that particular time. So it was like just Eddie Murphy. Today we don't have a just Eddie Murphy anymore. We have a lot of black individuals that we're celebrating in the media. We got Oprah coming out with A Wrinkle in Time, really kind of
that, right?
That's kind of leading the way. Everyone loves Lupita. Michael B. Jordan has been in several movies. People love him. We have all of these actors. We don't have just an Eddie Murphy. We have we got Angela Bassett. Come on now. It's like having a movie with 15 Eddie Murphys in it. And it's that's a lot different from Coming to America. Again, Eddie Murphy carried the star power to make that movie prolific. And now the star power that's in Black Panther is
evenly distributed.
Exactly.
In a way. It's very democratically distributed. We were talking about representation a little bit earlier, and we're talking about black representation. Let's talk about black woman representation for a hot second. You know what I mean? We've got Denai Guerrera in that movie. We've got Lupita. You know what I mean? We've got the Queen, Angela Bassett, up in there. We have Letitia Wright in there. And all of those characters, all of those women, you know what I mean, are strong, empowered, are in authority, right?
And I want to say dark skinned.
Yes, dark and lovely for days. You know what I mean? Like that whole set, smelled like cocoa butter. But it's but above and beyond that, what we're seeing for the first time in this film is that we are seeing the equal distribution and power of black men and women. And one more thing that I want to talk about in terms of the fictional land of Wakanda and why it's so resonant with African Americans. It is exactly because of slavery, where African Americans were torn from their indigenous cultures. You know what I mean? We don't, in a large part, African Americans, they don't reference a particular culture like Yoruba or Igbo or anything like that. What Wakanda does for African Americans is that it gives us our country. That's why you have so many African Americans. Like, I see so much buzz. It's like, what you wearing? What you wearing to the premiere of Black Panther?
Right.
I'm gonna get my dashiki. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get that.
Uh-huh.
You have people that saying like, I'm Wakandan.
Yep.
So it's like, in a way, the Black Panther movie gives African Americans a sense of a national African pride, which we did not have when Coming to America came out.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. We're going to take a break for 5. Take a break. We're going to take a break. I got more questions. We'll be back. Welcome again. We're at the second point now of the Black Panther Podcast, which is an effort of BrightSeed Collaborative, and thanks to Street Level as well. And my panelists are, once again,
Jiba Malay Anderson, CEO of Griot Enterprises and creator of The Horseman.
Keisha Howard, founder of Sugar Gamers.
Christopher Adams, CEO of Impact Studio and creator of Paradigm Gray.
So, Chris, I want to start off with something you mentioned when we took our break about how everybody's getting dressed up. Mm-hmm. Okay, be honest, right? Aren't you a little peeved at these, latecomers coming in now? Or you don't mind? Hey,
I don't,
as long as they make
better
the movie a
late
success,
than never.
Than ever. But don't you say, well, where were you when we needed you?
I remember a couple years ago wearing a Black Panther shirt. It didn't have the words Black Panther. It was just a character. It was done by a company called Black Action Tees. And people were like, why is that Batman not have his mouth? I'm like, it's not Batman. It's not. It's Black Panther. They're like, who? What? And so now when I wear it, everybody's like, hey, yeah, Wakanda. I'm like, okay. So it's interesting, so better late than never.
It's all good, right?
It's all good.
All right. Let me just get into the movie for a second. The director, Ryan Coogler. By the way, did he co-write the movie, the script?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Because I should have looked that up. But are you happy with that choice?
I am. I'm happy with that choice because I saw Creed. I saw Creed and I saw Michael B. Jordan, and I saw how with Ryan Coogler, he took the Rocky mythos and created a new mythos from it, which was based on the Rocky mythos, but taking, his friend / rival, Apollo Creed, and making Apollo Creed the mythic figure in that story. And it then becomes, Apollo's son's journey. And then with Adonis, he goes and seeks out his own family. So he first goes to, his father's greatest, rival and greatest friend. And he's like, basically like, yeah, you're training me. I'm calling you uncle. You're my uncle. You know what I mean? And then, you have Tessa Thompson, who does a great turn in that film. And so, Ryan, what I saw with that work is that, he brought the gravitas, he brought the sensitivity, he brought the realness to it. And so when I heard that he was, because I remember in the whole director's conversation, it was basically between him and Ava DuVernay.
I think there was more publicity. I don't think she really was interested in that.
No, she wasn't really, but they threw her name in there.
Right, they had to.
Yeah, they threw her name in there. And if she, and if it was serious and she got the directing job, I would have been happy with that as well. You know what I mean? Because, she has that. She does also have that great, fantastic element to her work as well. But with Coogler, I like that choice because, this is his first time playing in a science fiction fantasy pond, But when I saw Creed, I saw where he will bring those sensibilities together. So, yeah, I'm very excited.
Well, I was a fan from Fruitvale Station because one of the things he did in Fruitvale Station that only I think black men and women can deal with is how we have to wear different masks in society, where I think a lot of other cultures and ethnicities get to kind of be themselves regardless. And he showed that in Fruitvale Station, how the main character had to be at work, how he had to be in the community, how he had to be with his family. And those were like three very distinct of many personalities or masks that I think as black men have to wear. Like I find myself having to speak more soft-spoken when I'm in certain areas because women grab their purses, they see this big tall black guy with a beard or whatever, and then or I'm talking to a client that hasn't met me over the phone and they're like, oh, he's a white guy, and I show up like, what? So it's interesting, and so I think all of those abilities also will help him in his directing of Black Panther, along with Creed, and he just, also, I saw him went to a speaking engagement at I think it was the university had him, and he hadn't even started Black Panther, but he had gotten the job, and just listening to him speak and be very sincere, and he sounds like me talking to one of my other fellow filmmakers. I felt that he was going to grasp it, and with the tools and the team that Marvel would help him put together, it would not be a problem.
And how do you feel, Keisha, about it?
I actually don't have a lot of experience with that particular director. I'm just really excited. I'm on my Issa Rae kick right now. I kind of vote for everyone Black. So, the fact that this story starring, all of these Black people will have a Black director is what I'm happy about.
Well, they had to get a Black director. There was no way we're not going to.
For real, they
You
did.
couldn't get one.
Yes,
That's why
I
I thought it was going to be Anton Fuqua who would go with. That's what I thought.
That's interesting.
But then after Equalizer, I said, maybe he'll give a really hard edge to it,
Right.
But and Ava has her own thing. She's got A Wrinkle in Time,
Right.
which is coming out in March.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's also one other director who people don't know about by the name of Julius Ona, who is a Nigerian American. He's got the next Cloverfield movie coming
Gotcha.
out.
I thought you
It
were...
was supposed to come out in first Friday of February. But they pushed that back to April because they don't want anything going up against Black Panther.
Right.
Yeah.
What's
was smart.
interesting? What's interesting is that you did have a number of Black directors that they could have gone to. They could have gone to Tim Story, who did the Fantastic Four
Yeah,
movies.
well-
And I saw the cringe face. You're absolutely right on the cringe face. They could have also gone with F. Gary Gray.
But the other thought, I thought, right.
You're right. Yeah.
But he's got
Or
Fast and Furious. He's
exactly.
happy.
Or they could have gone with Singleton, which would not have worked.
No.
Singleton would not have worked.
It wouldn't work in any capacity.
No, but I remember when Singleton was talking about how he wanted to do Luke Cage and he wanted Tyrese to play Luke Cage, and I was just like, no.
So anyway, explain what our host was talking about, our producer was talking about, in terms of the
Dora Milaje?
Yes, explain it.
Okay, so yes, the Dora Milaje is the elite fighting force of the Wakandan army. It is the personal guard of the Black Panther. What is unique about the Dora Milaje is that they are all women. They are all women who come from the different tribes that make up Wakanda. And not only are they the personal guard, but when Christopher Priest created them in his run, they were also supposed to be, in a sense, they were saving themselves for the king if, T'Challa decided to take a wife. He was to take a wife from the Dora Milaje. T'Challa was like, nah, I'm cool with that, because at the time, a lot of people talk about Storm as the love of Black Panther's life, and she kind of was, but really the first woman of the Black Panther is Monica Lynn, which a lot of people have forgotten about. And Monica Lynn was an African-American soul singer that I believe during the first McGregor run, he encounters and whatnot, and he falls in love with her, and he brings her to Wakanda, and so she's kind of the woman in his life until Christopher Priest's run, where basically they were like they're broken up, because she was tired of being a hostage. She was literally he wrote that into the story. She's like, you know what? I'm done getting kidnapped by, every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's trying to come at you every week. And what was ironic is that conversation was happening when the White Wolf abducted her again for his plans. And she's like, I'm done, But back to the Dora Milaje. That was an extremely revolutionary move on Christopher Priest's part. That's even arguably more revolutionary than the Amazons with a Wonder Woman story. Because again, you have this sense of the woman warrior, and I'm wondering, and I wouldn't be surprised if Priest created the Dora Milaje in honor and respect of the black women who have headed, the freedom movements from jump, you know what I mean? From Harriet Tubman to Sojourner Truth to Ida B. Wells, you know what I mean? To Angela Davis, to the women who started the Black Lives Matter movement, The Dora Milaje, in my opinion, is sort of like this metaphor, for the power of the black woman and the need, and I have to stress this for, a number of brothers who, want to get into these, excuse my French, fake ass patriarchal, mores and mindsets. But it's like, in African cultures, straight up man and woman are equal. We have our roles to play. And the Dora Milaje represent that.
Keisha, let me ask you. If someone like me, well, let me tell you a little story. 2 weeks ago, I get a box in the mail from Amazon. I said, I didn't order anything from Amazon lately. What is this? And I open up the box, and there's 2 issues of Black Panther. And I said, oh, this must be some sort of promotional thing. It made it very clever. No, it turned out it was sent to me by a friend of mine. There's a little note in there. He said, this is to get you started. Okay? So I read them, and I'll be honest, I couldn't follow the story because they were well into these various storylines. So I said, I need to read something that can really start me getting off on this. So what would you suggest for people who, they may be excited about the movie, but they maybe to get some real knowledge about the background, like as you described? What should they start off with?
Oh, gosh. You asking me that question?
Well, you're on the Black Panther podcast as an expert, right?
As an expert in how I feel about Black Panther, for me, again, the thing that I saw that kind of got me into Black Panther, there was a series on BET for a little while when I still had cable. But I just... For some reason, I just couldn't immerse myself in it because I'm like, oh, it's an animated series with black people. But it was really just like moving comic book pictures.
Yeah, it was a motion comic.
And I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
So, but it kind of did sort of get me started and, like the youth of T'Challa. Did I say it right? I didn't.
T'Challa.
Yeah.
T'Challa.
And how he met Storm or Roro and, this feeling of wanting to avenge his father's death. And, at the end of the day, Black Panther's origin story, like what he's motivated by, isn't the most original thing ever. It's not, you're not missing out on anything if you are just like, all right, I'm going to just go see the movie. I think we can all start fresh at the movie and it's okay. Like it's not like the other comic book movies where, it's like sports. Well, when Batman did this and, this comic, well, then that changed when this person wrote it because on this, let's not do that. And let's just all start fresh with the movie because Black Panther, they have a lot of different iterations of Black Panther. And, it's weird to, kind of go back because it was revolutionary for its time to even have a black comic book hero. And when it was first written, it wasn't written by black people. So, don't get me wrong, they gave it the good old college try. But now, presently, I think, we just should all start fresh, no judgments in our heart. Not, having our stack of comic books ready to judge the movie or not including, this
But it's coming.
Right.
It's coming.
It's coming, of course.
I know it's coming, but, I don't think that's the strong part of what about Black Panther. I think it was kind of the strong part of Wonder Woman. But, that was a prolific movie because it was like, oh, a female superhero finally starring in a movie. But that was sort of pandering. Whereas Black Panther, it's fresh. We can just all start at the same point. We don't need to go back and read issues, but if we do, I don't really think there's a right or wrong way to do it. Like,
I would say for the modern fan, 2 books to read to get a backstory on the Black Panther. Reginald Hudlin's Who is the Black Panther? That miniseries, read that. And most importantly, I would say read The Client. Read Christopher Priest's initial run of Black Panther, which is The Client. Because with Hudlin, Who is the Black Panther, you get the basics of Wakanda, you get the basics of, the Black Panthers, that sort of thing. With The Client, what you get is the political ramifications of what Wakanda means to the Marvel Universe. I think if you read those 2 books, that's a good primer, But the great thing, again, about Marvel movies and the quote-unquote Marvelisms of every movie, well, number one, we get Black Panther's origin in Captain America Civil War. So we've already got his motivation, right? The great thing about Marvel movies is that they realize with the first movie, most people have not read the comics. So they do give the setup and they give you the story that you can move forward with. So as Keisha said, you don't have to read, a Black Panther comic book to understand what the Black Panther's world is. But if you want that extra bit of knowledge, I think those are the 2 books to get.
Well, I'm going to something Keisha said about. Well, let me rephrase it this way, and I spoke about this earlier before we began shooting. The Brooklyn Academy of Music, with its, it's not just music, it's a theater. They show movies there all the time. They have this special retrospective of, they call it early Black superheroes, and they're showing Blade and Blade 2. They're also showing a lot of blaxploitation films, and also they're showing Buck and the Preacher. And you have to understand, like, I can see the enthusiasm for Black Panther, like the enthusiasm I had for blaxploitation films.
Right.
Because we had never seen that before. We want to see black men winning. I don't want to see a black man dying to save the life of some white guy. I want to see a black man killing all the racist white guys and they walk away at the end. Django. Which is why I love Django. Django is nothing. That shootout at the end, where he goes in the house, that's ripped off from Slaughter's Big Ripoff. When Jim Brown walks in the room and kills every single white guy in the house. That's what he does. And he walks away at the end. And I stood in my seat and I said, you know how long I've been waiting for this? Since 1974? To see a black man kill all the white people and get away with it?
We got our catharsis.
Right, exactly. So I can see the excitement. And also it was a Western. And Westerns are my favorite genre, right? So I got 2 for 1.
Right. You were happy that day.
Are you kidding me? I have the Blu-ray. So anyway,
right.
I rewatched that scene over and over again.
you're like, I'm happy.
Which was produced by Reggie Hudlin.
Right.
And I had to tell you this story. He called me once. He was on the set, and they were shooting that shootout scene. I said, how's it going? He said, oh, my God, the blood. And he said, what? He said, oh, God, quitting with this blood. Wait till you see. I said, okay. And I saw the movie. I said, oh, my God, the blood.
You went there.
Now he see where he was talking about. So I can see the enthusiasm. Right? So the point I wanted to make was, I think it is generational. I think every generation looks for a film. I'm talking about black generations, looks for, it's wrong to look, maybe in a way, look at a movie just going to solve your problems, because no movie can't, right? But you just want to see, can I get a relief from from the reality of life, right? And can I see something different?
Right.
Okay, it's, and anybody can address this. There's a lot of talk about the fact that Proud Mary tanked at the box office.
That what?
Proud Mary tanked at the box office. It came out last weekend, and it didn't do well. It dropped over 60% this weekend. It's not going anywhere. And the thing about it is that people are saying, we don't support black movies. No, we support black movies all the time.
Right.
We just want to see good black movies we want to support.
Right. With Proud Mary, what's interesting, they talk about it tanked, but it only cost $12 million to make that movie.
Yeah, but a film's got to do at least 3 times what it costs to make.
Right.
And it's not going to do that.
Okay, so what was it, like, first week it made like $3 million or something?
No,
like
first
that?
week it did 10.
It did $10 million?
This week it did like 3.5.
Okay, so
I mean,
yeah, so it made break even, and yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's like we come out and support, but you know, we're at the point now. The difference between the '70s and the blaxploitation movement and nowadays is that our expectations are a lot higher.
Well,
because
yeah.
because the fact
Well,
of the matter,
well, yeah, it's true.
Well,
Right.
I'm saying our expectations are higher in the sense of like we understand the technology, you know, behind filmmaking, right? We are not just satisfied with anything that has us on the screen anymore. You know, our palette.
That's
our palette
true.
has
true.
become more sophisticated. Not only that, but you know,
Then explain Medea Boo.
right? Yeah, I mean, our offerings have become more diverse, right? So it's not just one thing. It's like on one hand, you know, if you're into that thing, you could watch Empire, or you could watch Queen Sugar, or you could watch Luke Cage, or you could watch, you know, now Black Lightning, or you could watch Blackish, or you could watch, you know, so on and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? Yeah. And all of these projects, you see the production value in it. Yep. So it's like now it's like, yeah, you don't have to give us, you know, we're not satisfied with whatever.
Yeah. Well, you know,
just because it's black don't mean it's good.
Exactly.
Right. And having a generation, you know it. We're a generation when you're a kid watching TV and you saw a black guy,
it's a big
Mom,
thing.
Dad,
right.
Come here quick.
Yeah.
Quick, hurry up. He's going to be gone any second.
Right.
You know?
I mean, and I'll say this, it's like because, you know, I'm the generation right after. I'm Generation X, right? So if we break it down in eras, if you will, right? If you say the 70s was like really the first time that you had black representation. You know what I mean? So in the 70s, it was all
You mean in numbers?
In numbers.
Right.
In numbers. In big numbers. Because of the blaxploitation movement, because of shows like The Jeffersons, you know what I mean, Good Times, so on and so forth, Stanford and Son. That was the first time we saw ourselves on a consistent basis. So anything that we saw of ourselves, that was a great thing. You go into the 80s, which I like to call the respectability era. You know what I mean? It's like that begins to change. It's like, you know, in the 70s, it was all radical. It was all froze. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. In the 80s, it becomes all about Cosby. And it becomes about the whole thing of like, well, they got, you know, now we understand like if you put a black person in a show, then that's good. So, you know, in those shows you had the one black person in the cast. You know what I mean? If you go from Benson to all that other stuff.
Right.
Yes, the magical Negro. And what was also happening during that time too is the beginning of hip hop, where you have the beginning of this unapologetic representation of who we are with our voice, so on and so forth. Whether or not you love all hip hop or whatnot, that's your personal opinion, but that's a real thing. And that's Generation X, you know what I mean? So in the 90s, that's when you had the second black movie movement, you know what I mean? That's where you had, you know, Spike emerge, Singleton emerge. That's where, again, you had a second sense of diversity of black representations from the quote-unquote gangsploitation films of, Boys in the Hood and Juice and stuff like that.
Juice.
But then you also had, you know, Eve's Bayou, you know what I mean? It also evolved into the black romantic comedy with Love Jones, so on and so forth. By the end of the 90s, that's when you have the first major black superhero movie which changed the game, which is Blade. You know, yes, we saw Meteor Man. You know,
I was about to bring that up, and I know people
roll
roll their eyes,
right.
but
we saw Meteor Man, we saw Steel, we saw Spawn. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna be real with you. Yeah, Spawn. I don't know which was the worst movie, Spawn or Steel. I think they're in the running for. Like,
I'll give the edge to Steel.
Definitely way worse.
Yeah. But it was with Blade where we saw. I call it a neo-blaxploitation film. Because Blade had the attitude he had the attitude of Shaft, of Slaughter, of all those
absolutely.
cats. And that was the time, in addition to, again, you know, can't knock Star Trek Deep Space Nine with Benjamin Sisko.
Avery Brooks.
Avery Brooks, you know what I mean? So in the 90s, we had begun to see the diversification of black images. You see what I
about a
mean?
man called Hulk?
And the quality, you know what I mean, of those representations, especially when it came from our people, our voices, the Singletons, so on and so forth. So now, in this new millennium, we ain't taking no shorts. You know what I mean? It's like no, it's gotta be good. You know, it is not enough for it. We ain't trying to see Medea in Wakanda. You know what I'm saying? We want the real deal.
Well, first of all, a couple of things is that Medea Wakanda. Oh God, that's the next one. We should end it right there. I don't know. Okay, Tyler, look, I don't like his movies, but he had his audience.
Yeah,
he had an audience.
Definitely.
He had an unserved audience.
Exactly.
Yep. Right?
I'm with you.
It was, you saw one of his movies, it was all women and those miserable guys who were dragged to see the picture.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And
the greased down light-skinned brother with the cornrows because he was the good brother.
Right, yeah, you're right. Yeah, light-skinned brother. You're right. Yeah. Oh God. But
there's a lot to unpack with those.
Yeah, that's for a whole other show altogether. That's for a whole other show together. But go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Let's talk about the fact that when they adapted this as an animated film with BET.
But tell me what it was. The
Reggie Hudlin.
Reggie Hudlin. Right.
Black Panther series.
Would you say that changed the game? What Reggie did with the character?
Yeah. But what I wanted to get to was the fact that it was at BET. BET was like, well, we don't think it fits our audience.
Well, of course it's BET.
Wait a minute. A black king ruling his own country, kicking Captain America's butt, kicking a bunch of superheroes' butts, saving his country, and you don't know what the audience
but that was the BET,
Of course not.
That was the BET Uncut era. Because because I'll tell you this. Real talk. When the Horsemen first came out in 2002, it was around the same time that Spider-Man came out. So when the book came out, I was approached by BET not once but twice with both Spider-Man movies about the possibility of making the Horsemen a project, which never came about because exactly during that time, the audience that they were going for was the quote unquote, I call it the BET Uncut audience. You know what I mean? There wasn't enough booty shaking, there wasn't enough thongs up in there, so on and so forth. Also keep in mind is that at that time, BET was bought up by Viacom. Yeah. So, the people who are making the decisions on what blackness is or what black people want weren't even black folks making those decisions.
As someone who had a bunch of music videos during that time, there were black people making those retarded
and that's
decisions.
A damn shame. And that is a damn shame.
Kick Push, when we did Kick Push, they did not know what to do with Lupe, and they were trying to change it and add women in boy shorts and everything. And I tell people this story, and all the time they think I'm talking about a white guy. I'm like, no, it was a black guy trying to tell us to put half naked women in boy shorts in Kick Push.
Man, that is such a love and hip hop moment. I am so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. But thankfully, Lupe and Chili,
you think that even today,
nod your head yes to everything, do none of it.
You think that even today, BET would do a show like Atlanta? Or a show like Insecure?
No, but they will do a show like The Quad. They will take a show like Being Mary Jane. They will do a show like, what was it, Rebel? Which was basically the Misty Knight show. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's basically what it was. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like BET is, it's in this interesting place now because they have more competition. With TV One, with Oprah's network, so on and so forth. So right now, I feel like BET is playing catch up.
Oh yeah. Well, let me tell you, and we talk about Afrofuturism and Black Panther. I had a friend of mine. I won't mention. They had a friend of mine who was interviewed by BET for a show. I'm talking about a special about Afrofuturism. Now, her point was that now they're just sort of like finding this out. And maybe, I don't think it's a show. I think it may have been just a segment. But that's all they're going to do.
Right.
Let's just do a little segment about, we heard about this thing. What is that? But that's not really our audience. And, so even today, I don't think BET would even consider.
Oh no, they wouldn't. Yeah, they
Even
wouldn't. Because the people that approached me were definitely the younger people that were working at BET, and they were like, yeah, this would be dope. You know what I mean? And I know, I wasn't privy to all the discussions, but I can hypothesize that they put it up the flagpole with the other people in power, and they were like, no, we don't get that.
Right.
Like, where's Get Rich or Die Trying?
Right.
Like, why aren't they in the ghetto? You know what I mean?
Right.
What's with this? Like, this is an international thing.
Right.
Like they're
it's
superpowered,
and that's a
they're
problem
acting like the
that's
Avengers
been going
and
on.
stuff like
I remember
that.
having a conversation with big wigs at Johnson Publishing on why they needed a website, and they were looking at me like I was.
Oh, hey,
Yeah,
no,
work.
don't start.
Yeah.
I used to work there. Don't start. Don't start. That's another show. You shouldn't have said that, because now I could go on for a half an hour about the problems I had when I worked in that. For them.
Yeah, and it's sad because someone as
oh.
such as iconic, you had Ebony and Jet, who were in every black home in America.
I know.
To not be some sort of multi-billion-dollar media dynasty at the head of all of this stuff.
And look where they are now.
Right.
Look where they are now.
Right.
That's insane.
I
Total
saw,
mismanagement.
I saw an Ebony magazine on and they had Chadwick Boseman on the cover. And I thought, oh, gee, now.
Right.
Anyway, any last words? I want to thank everybody.
I did have something.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to touch on as like an old millennial is the way that I consume media, which I think has a different perspective. As a gamer and as an avid reader and as a nerd, I'm still like I come from a demographic of people who likes to engage with their media more than just passively watching TV, which I think does something different to your brain. When you're playing a video game, you embody the character. So like whatever you're doing with your character is connected to you. And like when you're reading, you're using your imagination to visualize how people look and what kind of characteristics that they may have in addition to the details that you're given in that book. When we watch TV and movies over the past years, we just kind of have to take it. So as he gave us this nice little history about like the different things that have been going on each decade as to how Black people consume media and what we get excited about. But I think that one thing that has been left out is that now cable and movies and the way we consume media is very different. Mm-hmm. So in the last 10 years, we have more people who want to see themselves represented even more than ever because there's more gamers, there's more geek culture enthusiasts, there's more people who are in this space. Geek culture is now pop culture. So all those geeks that hadn't been like represented now really have the power, the education, and the numbers to see themselves represented in this sort of genre in Afrofuturism and Black futurism. And I think that's something that is way more powerful than the generations before ours because, again, just to be able to embody a character. Like cosplay just recently came to America in the last 20 years. When I started cosplaying 10 years ago, I would say cosplay and people would not know what that meant. Now everybody wants to cosplay, this formerly Japanese way of embodying your favorite character is now very American and now widely accepted to be normal. This used to be something that only lames and super nerds did. And now it's just like, how, again, what Wakandian outfit are you wearing to the movie theater? Mm-hmm. And I just want to put that out there that really Black Panther does touch on a younger generation of people who I haven't had cable in years because I have Hulu, I have Netflix, I have Amazon Prime. I don't know what's going on BET because they don't have a streaming service. And if they did, I wouldn't pay for it. So like even those discussions are kind of greatly diminished with millennials. And it's my hope that with Black Panther, millennials will see how far that they can go with pushing how people engage with media and different forms of storytelling.
Well, I was going to say, the revenge of all those people who got bullied in high school and beat up.
Yes.
If I had known, I would have been nicer to them.
No, here's the thing. I'm gonna have a discussion on my. That's another discussion about the nerd community. But anyway, but what I there's a term that's been bandied around in my head for the past few weeks. I'd like to call it psychic capital. Like we're in a point right now in history in this country where you're having one group, their psychic capital is diminishing.
Can you define psychic capital?
What I mean by psychic capital is the notion of self-worth, the notion of self-worth, the notion of self-value, which is all tied into representation, right? So if we talk about the psychic capital of African America, that capital went up exponentially with the presidency of Barack Obama, right? That capital is being maintained and it's still going up despite the reaction from the diminished psychic capital of the other trying to put us down, which actually in some ways culminated in the election of Donald Trump to regain some sort of psychic capital, which is still in diminishing. It's diminishing returns, right? So with Black Panther, you know what I mean? It is another like spike in the psychic capital of African America. Like at this point in the game, we are coming to the point. It's like you can't tell us nothing, right? Yep. You trying to come here. You try to come here and try to tell us about ourselves. You know what I mean? It's like you trying to come here and talk about you have a PhD in race and representation where you don't even have your GED. It's like we're at this. That is a sense of empowerment that people don't really understand how important that is. And that is something that we as creators or as gamers, as filmmakers, that sort of thing, like we're the bank of psychic capital. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like with Black Panther, we're about to see a huge deposit.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about what comes after. How this is going to inspire others. Like, when I started Paradigm Gray, I told my fellow group of filmmakers, Black Panther is coming. Marvel don't play, so we know it's going to be. So we need to be en route. We need to be on that train or ahead of that train. And I'm just excited to see how this is going to inspire a whole new generation of Black filmmakers, creators, comic book creators, video game makers, all across the board, because, it's going to be the flagship.
And with that's the perfect subject for the next show. I want to thank my guests, Keisha Howard, Chris Adams, and Jiba Anderson, First Aid Comics for hosting us, and Street Level, who is filming us today. And you can already purchase your special. They may be sold out. You can. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. You can purchase your special Black Panther movie ticket packages for evening premiere showing at February 15th at 9 p.m. at the Harper Theater here in Hyde Park in Chicago, right here to First Aid Comics. Thanks for listening and watching. I'll see you all next week.